Hello, welcome to another Digital Photo Mentor YouTube live stream. This week we are doing Luminar Neo photo editing. So I am taking subscriber submitted images and I'm going to be walking you through the process that I use to approach how to edit a photo in terms of determining what I do to it, and then demonstrating using the Luminar Neo tools how I would approach and how I would complete that editing. You can also submit your images. So if you're brand new to the channel and brand new to this live stream, welcome. If you're one of our regular viewers, welcome back. And I'd like to invite you to submit your images for next time. So we alternate between Lightroom and Luminar. Next week, we'll be doing Lightroom. And if you submit your images, you can indicate which software you are using. And then I will demonstrate so that you can see which one is best for you. But regardless of whether you're using Luminar or Lightroom or Photoshop or On1 or something completely different, the techniques are still the same, and why I'm doing what I'm doing to the image still applies no matter what software you're using. So I'm going to jump over into Luminar and I'll be right back to do some chit chat before we get started. Okay, let's see who we've got. Some regulars. Deb, welcome. Daniela, I have your images you can see on the screen. Welcome. Bienvenidos. Linton. Danielle, looking forward to tonight. Awesome. Merle in Michigan. Sheila, been doing lots of editing. Awesome. Feeling more confident. That's great. So I've got a lot of cool images today. I've also got some that Derek sent me, some family photos that they had done that they weren't particularly happy with. So I did an edit for them. And I want to show you what I did to take his image from this look, which is what they received, to this, which is what I did for them. So I've got a few different images. Let me get out of full screen mode here and make myself smaller. There we go. Hello, Nina. Welcome. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Thanks for joining us. And please, as you're going along today, if you enjoy this video, do give it a thumbs up. And I have some of your images as well, Marty. I know you've submitted quite a few, so we can choose which ones that you would like me to have a look at today. I've got, I think this one is Daniela's as well. Is the bird? Yes. So we've got a couple of Daniela's and one from last week that I still wanted to work on. So I promised that I would do the bird, but I want to start with this one of Derek's because the images that they got, they hired a photographer and they weren't quite happy with it. Hi, David. So does it look stretched on your screen? Does the image on the screen look stretched to anybody, or does it look okay? Tell me that. Oh, hey, Derek, there's the image that you sent me. So we're going to start with Derek's images because I wanted to show you how I got from this to this. Now, I did, in this particular instance, I did some editing in Lightroom first, and then I took it to Luminar and I did the sky replacement and a few stylistic changes. Okay, so I want to start with this one. And the first immediate thing that you notice is that it has a color problem. So it's very sort of reddish. Like if you look at the skin tones and you look at the shadows, it looks very red. Right now, they didn't get the raw file, so this is a JPEG, which is fine. We can work with that. So to adjust color, we can start in the develop panel and we can look at the color options here. So if we know that something is neutral, this is a question that I got from somebody the other day. If we know that somebody is wearing something that is a neutral color, for example, this little guy's shirt here, right? If we know that that's white, use the eyedropper. And then when you place the eyedropper or where you place it makes a big difference. So I'm just going to click on here and you can see this little square where it says pick a target neutral. Whenever I click on that, it's going to try and make whatever color tint was underneath neutralized, meaning no color. So it saw that there was blue, so it added yellow, and magenta, so it took away magenta. Okay, so there was definitely a lot of red in there. Okay, I do still see a lot of sort of yellow. So I'm not sure I would agree with adding the yellow here, maybe a little bit. But I'm going to use a different slider to try and get rid of this weird color tint. So when you have an image like this that you can't sort of balance it, and you've tried, different things in here, and it just doesn't look right. If we go too far this way, the sky looks neutral, but now their faces look kind of weird and blue. So I want to get rid of some of this. But I think the color is in the shadows, right? So we could do a couple of different things. We could go down here. Actually, I have it up here because it's in my favorites. Nope, I lied. It's not in my favorites. I'm looking for toning. So toning allows you to adjust the shadows and the highlight colors separately. Okay, so to make it take effect, you have to drag the saturation slider up and then adjust the hue. So if I know that things are red, I'm going to want to go to the opposite end of the scale somewhere. Okay, so we're going extreme here, but see how that's sort of neutralizing that red that's in the underlying tones of their skin, right? So I don't want to go too far so that they end up with blue, right? But you see the difference there? Look at how well that's neutralizing that red undertone, okay? So when you have a lot of red in the skin like that, it just starts to look like everybody's got a rash or sunburn. Okay, so I don't want to go too far because I don't want to have them to have blue lips or anything, but that's looking already way better. Okay, so we started off with something really pink, and we've gotten rid of a lot of that pink tone. Okay, and we could do highlights as well. Maybe I want to give the highlights actually a little bit of yellow. So let's see what that looks like. That looks pretty good. Okay, the next thing I want to do is crop it a little bit. So you can use the keyboard shortcuts in Luminar Neo. We have a free Luminar Neo keyboard shortcut PDF cheat sheet. Rob, if you could please share the link to that. You can download that. If you're a member of our Luminar Neo course, that's part of the course. You get the cheat sheet as well. So I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut C to open the crop tool. And then I'm just going to see what Luminar thinks is a good crop. So I'm going to press Composition AI. Now, it usually comes in a little bit, and I find that the amount is good, but I have to reposition it. And in this case, I would tend to agree, but I'm going to give it a little more space than that. So I'm not going to come in quite as tight as it did. And you see how the horizon is crooked? You can click this button here for horizon alignment, and it should straighten it, which it didn't entirely, but I'm just going to eyeball it here. Now we can move this up and down just to check, and then position how we want. Okay, so I'm putting the horizon right on that line just to double check. And I still think I'm cropped in too tight here. I just want to come in a little bit tighter than what the original was. So let's go something like that. Okay, so now we're straight. We got a little bit better color. Looking good so far. Now I might find it's a little bit green. So again, there's this dance. So if I find now I've gone too far with this adjustment on the develop, I want to go back a little bit and undo that, and then just have another check once I apply the toning. Okay, so I went and did one adjustment. Then after I did the toning, I went back and readjusted it. Okay, now one of the things that I did in Lightroom was I chose a different color profile. I chose one of the ones that was modern or actually faded out. And you don't have that option here in Luminar, but what we do have is something called high key. There's another one called dramatic. And both of these actually do the same kind of thing. I want to drag this up because this is sort of the look that I was going for. I wanted to make it look sort of washed out, pastel-y, on the beach, sort of light and airy, right? So this high key tool does a really nice job here, right? So I can adjust the amount of saturation, right? If we want to fade it out a little bit more, we can adjust how much. Now this one here, there's a standard high key, and then there's this dynamic high key. I find that dynamic tends to keep the midtones a little better, whereas if we do standard, it gets really sort of contrasty and blown out. So I like to use the dynamic one a little bit more. Let's go somewhere in there. I'm just, again, doing it pleasing to the eye. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. We can also set up the amount of glow that we have. Now, I'm going to keep this one actually low or nil because I'm going to use a different tool to set up the glow. Okay, so I'm going to leave that one at 0. And I just want to make sure we're not clipping anything. So when you press J on the keyboard, you'll get your clipping warnings showing up as an overlay. You can also click it on the histogram here. And if you don't see the histogram, just under the view menu, you can hide it or show it, okay, right here. But you can see that there's nothing in the whites that's clipping, which is good. And there's some blacks clipping, which is fine. Okay, I like to have blacks clipping because then it makes the image feel richer. Okay, it has a deeper tonal range. So far we're getting pretty close, right? And I might scale that back a little bit. I've kind of lightened it a fair bit there. Let me come back and scale that down just a touch. There we go. Now the only other thing I did was to change the sky. So we're going to do a sky replacement. And I tried a few different ones. There's some free ones on the Skylum website called California Free Skies. You can download those just on the Skylum marketplace. And when I pop this one in, once it's plopped in, right, I can, position it so that it's sort of, I want to make sure that it's at the horizon. You can see the line here where I was moving it up. Okay, so I want to make sure that it's at the horizon, like so. And then I can make sure it's blended and do some things like reflections and so on. Okay. The other thing you do here under the sky is this scene relighting. Now this one is really cool because when I drag these sliders to the right, it's going to adjust the rest of the picture to match the sky. Okay, so let's take these up to the extreme here. Okay, it's going to adjust these sort of more muted. I'm not crazy about what it did on the humans there, but it's adding more of the sky colors into the image. So then they look like they belong together, which is a really smart thing. Okay. Now the sky that I used for this one, I believe it was under bright blue sky. I think it was this one. No, I can't remember now. Hang on. Let me look at my other screen. I've got it here somewhere. Let's see. No, it's got a wispy clouds. Okay, let me find the one that I used. I've got quite a few in here. Okay, it definitely wasn't a dramatic sunset. Whatever you do, if you have Luminar Neo, don't use this sunset. Okay, this one is overused to death, and you see it everywhere on the internet, and everybody's got this one on their picture. So you want to kind of avoid that. I think I used this one. Okay, so this is the one that I used. I don't know where I got this one. It might have come with something with Skylum, with Luminar. Now, this is a big deal. You want to make sure that your sky lighting matches the picture. Now, if you look, there's not a lot of shadows in here, but it's ever so slightly more shadow on this side. So I need to flip this one. So it's over here. And the sky is too dark. So I'm going to use the sky adjustments at the bottom here. Atmospheric haze, this one, does a really nice job to sort of like fade the sky out, which then matches the picture better. Okay. I'm also going to defocus it because if you look at the water way in the background there, it's really out of focus. Okay. So I think when I did it, I had the sky up to about 10 or so. And what that does is if you have out of focus background and then a sharp sky, it's not going to make sense, right? So if your background is out of focus, make sure you defocus the sky as well. And that's why I love these adjustments here in Luminar Neo, because it makes it so easy to do. I'm going to cool it off just to give it a little bit more blue. See that? Okay, so we can go warmer or more blue. When I go more blue, it picks up more blue in the water and so on. And I could brighten it or darken it. I like the idea of having it just light and airy. And the sun is kind of right behind him. So I might actually just bring it down. Well, make sure it's right behind his head. See that? Just like that. So I want to make it look as natural as possible. Okay. Then the last thing I did, and we could do a sun rays. I didn't do sun rays on here. We could do sun rays, which might add a whole different atmosphere, because with sun rays, you can actually do some really cool things. Okay, so if I place the sun center right behind him, which is where we know the sun is, okay, it shouldn't come through his head like that, but let's just see if we can make that work. It should recognize that it's behind something, and it's not doing that. So let me just move it around a little bit. Yeah, it should recognize that it's behind him. Right? So we could definitely mask it off. But the neat thing that I like about the sun rays tool is that you can do things like completely change the look with this overlay slider, or this overall look slider. Okay. I would definitely need to mask it off him, and I'm not kind of happy with where this is going. So I'm not going to add a sun rays. But that's the one that I really like, is the overall one. Let's see. How are we doing on the chat here? Yes, Rob has been out in the garden all day today, so he's got scratches all of his arms from pulling out prickly weeds and so on. And yes, thank you very much, David, for doing such a great review on our Lightroom course. We really appreciate it. The Lightroom course is now completed. All the lessons are up. Everything is there. Finished. Finito. Okay. Terminado. So let's see how close I got to the other one. Okay, so there's my first go at it. And there's my second go. Pretty similar. Looks like I corrected the tilt a little bit. Oh, I did add a little bit of an edge vignette, which I haven't done on this one, so we could do that as well. We could just add an edge vignette. Let's just darken that a little bit. There we go. So let me just do that. I wish we could do two side by side, but this is the closest I can get in Luminar. So pretty close, right? So this was my first edit on the right, and this is the one that I just did. So without even having seen it, I kind of knew what I was going for, right? So now here's the cool thing. Because he sent me two images, guess what we can do, right? So we could take this one that I just edited and save it as a preset. So I'm just going to call it Derek Beach Photos. And often what I'll do is I'll save temporary presets. For example, I was working on some photos of some Indigenous ladies, and the groups were all very similar, and I was doing similar things. So I just made a preset, and then when I pulled them actually from Lightroom, I just applied that preset and then sent it back to Lightroom. It was really simple. Okay. Now what we can do is go to the other image. I got to make these smaller. There's the other image. Okay, so same photo session, and we can go to presets and apply this preset. Keep in mind, it's going to do the sky replacement. Okay, if you do any masking of anything, make sure that you save your preset before you do any masking. Okay, look at that. One click. Are you watching this, Derek? Do you see what I did? Now it's your job to duplicate all this. So he's managed to get the high-res files. The photographer gave them the high-res files. You know what I would be happy to do for you, Derek, is I will export this preset for you, and I will send it to you. So I have your email address. I'll send you this preset, and just see what happens if you apply this directly to your images. But look at that, right? One click, boom. Done. All right. So I hope Derek is still here. Were you watching that, Derek? So I really like this look for these images. Definitely. Do you guys like this look with the pastel? Give me a yes in the chat. We like pastel look. Do we like this style? Well, it's tricky, Daniela. What you have to do is you have to find it, right? So you can right click on these little three dots here, or click the little three dots, and you choose Show in Finder, and then you get this weird thing. Okay, so it's a weird folder name. This here with all the letters and numbers, and then there's three things inside of it. And the resources in this case is the sky that was added. Okay, so if there is a preset with like a resource, like a texture overlay or a sky, and you share this preset. So to share this with somebody else, you literally just have to send them this entire folder. So what I would do is zip this. Okay, I'm just going to zip it, and then I will send that one to Derek, and then he just has to put it in the same folder. So if I was to send you guys this one, we could probably do that. You know, we can make this a free preset or something. If I was to send you guys this one, then you would just put it in the same folder. So you have to find this folder, and it's kind of hidden, but the way to find it is to right click on any of your existing presets that you've created. So just create one, locate it, find the folder that it's in, and then put the new folder that I just send you or that you download from somebody else. You could swap presets with friends and so on into that new folder. You can also add presets this way as well. You can add a preset here. So if you have the folder, right, you just have to find it. So let me try that here. I'm just going to rename this one. I'm going to move this. I'm just going to move this to downloads, for example. And I'm going to rename it Beach Portrait. Okay, it's a good name. Right now, I'm not sure if Luminar wants the zip file or not, but we're going to try and see what happens. The key is that you leave the folder name the same. Okay, you can't change the folder name. Okay, so that's the keys. You must leave it like this. So when we go in here to add, so if you purchase any, yeah, see it wants that folder, and it doesn't want me to choose it. Interesting. Let me work on that. Okay, as far as I know, that's how you would add them, but it's not giving me the right thing. So when I did some templates and presets for Skylum, they packaged them up and put them in a way that when you download them from their website, when you purchase them, then they add with that button. Okay, if you don't have them that way, if you're sharing with friends, you just have to put them in the folder as I just described. Okay. Yes, so the preset folder, right? So that, sorry, I've got cat hair on my face. The preset folder. So let's just try something. Let me see what else I've got in here that might look good on with that. Here's the interesting thing. So Daniela sent me this photo of some horses that she photographed, and this is her edit, which is actually really good. I like the way you've done it pastel as well. Got rid of the tree on the right, right? And let's have a look and see if that same preset looks good on here, because it's going to do a sky replacement, okay? And we could rename this. So I might just rename this. I'm going to call it Bleached Beach. How's that? Okay, so you can come up with funky names for your presets because it's kind of bleached out. But look what happens when I apply this one. We need a little bit of tweaking, but it's pretty good, right? There's more softening on here because I did skin softening. Oh, I didn't even do that on that. We could get back to that one as well. We could do some skin softening. Interesting. There's no edits applied here. It should show us the edits. Let's try that again. Beach. It should show us the edits. There we go. Okay, so now we've got the edits, and I'm going to ditch the sun rays. We didn't use that. And now we can adjust the sun. So the sun looks good here. The light is still coming from that side. We could orient it even better, okay? Because you can change the position vertically and horizontally. So we can actually move the sun a little more this way. Okay, now this is one where the sun rays might actually be really cool. Okay, I haven't done any editing. I'm not sure if I want the full sun. We're going to refine this a little bit. I see a little bit of halo around the horizon, so I just want to make sure that I get these things blending nice. And if you want to double check, just check your horizon, right? And maybe a little less vignette on this one. We're going to actually come back to the vignette because I'm going to crop this one and then we're going to have to re-vignette. Okay. Let's see what Luminar thinks for a crop. Pretty close to what you did, Daniela. I want to have, do I want to have more sky or more grass? Because right now the sky, there's a lot of sky. I kind of want the grass. I do like more space over here on them. So maybe we might come in even a little bit more like that. As I do like them having space off to the left like that. Very similar, I think, right? Now, what else do we do here? Now we did toning on this one to add some blue in the shadows, but maybe we don't want blue, right? Maybe we don't want blue here. Maybe we want more orange here, okay? So let's just go this way and dial this one down a little bit. So see how you can go back a few steps and just adjust things, okay? And now on this one, I might decide, okay, I like the same sky, but I want it warmer. This one, I want more warm. So we've used the same sky, the same preset. It's still blurry, which is nice, okay? Because if I focus this sky, see how that doesn't look right, okay? See how the background is blurry, but the sky is sharp? Doesn't work, okay? So you need to make sure they match, okay? Now, a couple of ideas that I had on this one, and we definitely want to check the vignette. I forgot to do that. A couple of ideas I had on this one is to add a texture or a LUT, because there's some really cool tonality here. It's very soft, and I like the idea of keeping it soft for sure. Really nice photo, Daniela. Love the horses. They're tricky to get into, position and get their heads all positioned. They move so much, right? So I like the way, you've got the colt here, probably next to mom, I'm guessing. Looks like maybe she's got another baby. This was one of your first photos? This is one of your first photos, Danielle? Is that correct? Am I reading that correct in the chat? Let me have a look here. I'm looking at it in Bridge as well, and it gives me some information here. Camera, file properties, 2012. So it is. All right. All right, so we've got a 10-year-old image. Well, you did really well. Mare is pregnant. Okay, see? I was correct. So she's got baby and new baby coming. So a couple of things I thought of here is we could actually add a bit of structure and detail onto the horses. And the structure is just going to, give them a little bit more texture and sort of crunchiness. We can mask it as well. I want to see what Mask AI comes up with, right? Because we could do sky. I know we can select sky and natural ground. I don't know if it has animals. See, it doesn't have animals yet, right? It doesn't have fauna, but I can select sky, natural ground, mountains, flora, no, architecture. So we've pretty much we got pretty close to opposite, right? So if I go back here to mask, oops, and show the mask, but invert it. Now I mostly have the horses selected. So now I can just go in here and refine it a little bit and just get them. So I use the Mask AI to get super close and then just brush to kind of quickly refine it. like so. Okay, so now that I've got the horses selected, roughly, right, now, see when I add this structure, see how if I go to the left, it's blurring? Now it's just giving them a bit more detail and crunch. And I can go in here and copy this mask because I'm going to do the same thing for details. So I'm going to give them a bit of medium details. And this image is a little small, like I'm zooming into 100% here. And I'm not sure if the horses are totally sharp, but we're going to give them a little bit of sharpening. Okay, so right now it's sharpening and doing the whole image. But when we go to masking, we can then paste it. And once again, it's only applying on them. Okay, so we're just sharpening the horses. Okay, so see what's happening? We're bringing them out more. Okay, we could even give them a bit more contrast as well. But the last piece I was going to add is a LUT. And these ones I always end up referring to my LUT contact sheets. So if you want to share links for those, please, Rob. So I want to look at the Land of Freedom ones. I want something that's warmish, but not too warm. So kind of on the, orange yellow side is what I'm looking for to go with the theme here. And Odessa is actually pretty nice, as is Sumi. So let's go with Sumi and see what that looks like. I like to dial the amount up higher. Well, that's kind of warm and soft. I like that. We might want to brighten it, but the color is nice. Let's try Odessa. Okay, also soft. So far I'm liking that. Let's see if there's any under here that are decent. And I just go with gut instinct here, right? Genius sort of has a faded outlook. I know Wooden and Smoky are sort of my favorites as well. Those are my go-tos. I use those a lot. So let's try one of those. Let's try Wooden. Okay, so Wooden ends up sort of this monochromatic, right? Does not feel like we're in the Old West now. Do we feel like we're in an Old West movie, right? So that's kind of a very interesting. It gets rid of almost all the greens. So that's kind of cool. And I just play around with these, see what they do. This one's adding contrast, right? We can dial the contrast down. Don't like that one as much as Wooden. And we could go full sepia, right? If I dial it down, it just adds a hint versus full sepia. Okay. So that's nice. I like that. But I think Wooden is the winner here. Yeah, I like what that's doing. I'm not going to go super high with it. And then we're going to add a texture, okay? So to add a texture, you need to do a layer. And if you use Luminar AI previously, there was a tool for that instead of adding a layer. Now, I've got tons of textures. I'm just going to pick one that I've already got loaded in here. Now, this one is very blue, okay? So it definitely is not the color that we want. But to add a texture, increase the opacity to 100 and then change the blend mode. And you're going to need probably either lighten, screen, overlay, or soft light. One of those usually does the trick. Okay, so see how soft light is kind of cool? Let's try hard light. Okay, so hard light is neat as well. We're picking up texture, especially in the sky, and we could mask it off the horses. I wish there was a way to paste a mask into these extra layers, but so far there isn't, okay? So soft light actually does a cool job of just adding some texture in there. Okay, we can flip it around. Let me try a different texture here. So we can either hide it or remove it. Let's try. There's one that I'm thinking of. This one might be okay. Okay, so we want blend mode. And dial up the opacity. I'll see what the texture is happening up there. We're getting some really cool textures. I don't like that blob in the sky, so we'll keep that down in the bottom here. But we're getting some cool textures in the sky now. Okay, so I could go with soft light, or I find hard light at a really low opacity often works well too. Or overlay. I'm going to go with overlay. Now, if we don't like the color that it's adding, okay, that's not a problem because we can edit this layer. Okay, so all I have to do is either dial down the saturation, or we can just change it to black and white. Okay, so now the texture is black and white. So it's not adding or changing the color at all. It's just adding texture. Okay. If I want to keep in mood with the existing one, we can choose the same LUT again. Do you remember which one I did? Did I do wooden? I think I did wooden. Right? I can use the same one. So then it sort of goes in line with the same coloration. See that? So we're on this layer, which is the texture. And then I can decide to mask it out. Okay, so if I don't want the texture on the horses, I can just erase it off of them. Okay, so whether or not you click paint or erase, okay, makes a big difference when you're doing the first brush stroke. Okay, because the first brush stroke that you make determines whether you are painting in that one spot. Because if you click paint, everything else goes away except where you just painted. If you click erase, like I just did, it leaves the texture everywhere except where you just erased. Right? I'm going to put a little bit of texture back in the middle here. So I really like that. So for me now, it has a very sort of Western feel. It's very different, right? We can soften the look now and have a little bit less texture. Okay. And there we go. So let's see how that compares to her edited one. Let me change this to large again. There we go. That works. So very different edits. Okay. And we've missed you. We've missed you. We're doing Luminar today, and your Lightroom students should know how to make a contact sheet. Yes, that's exactly how I made them, Sheila. That's exactly how I made those. Yes, they added copy and paste masking, Daniela, a few generations ago in Luminar Neo. They haven't added it to the additional layers yet, but you can duplicate a layer. You can rearrange the order of them. You can do the portrait background removal. So far, the background removal is only for portraits. But yes, actually, all of that is inside my Luminar Neo course as well, if that's something that you are interested in. Rob, if you could please share a link to our course. And we're talking about zebras. A little bit of white at the center of the horizon. Yes, I see it as well. So I could just blend that a little better in terms of the sky. Do you still see it? Did I manage to blend it a little better? I think it looks blended now. Catherine said, you have horses across the road, never get them facing me. Yeah, exactly. If you've got like hay or something, they'll come and they'll eat it. But as soon as you move your hand and try to take a picture, yeah, they turn away and you get back of their head or their butt. All right. What did I miss from? Oh, where were you off to, Catherine? England. Well, that's exciting. Practicing your new editing skills for photos for England. That's exciting. All right. Everybody's learning lots today. That's good. So we've learned presets, folders. We've used a lot. We've used a texture screen, keyboard shortcuts. Yeah, cool. Let's see what else we can come up with today. All right. Do you want to do, Marty, are you still here? Do you want to do one of your images, Marty? Because I've got these ones that Marty sent, which are really kind of cool. They look like some sort of neon thing at night or something, like glowing in the dark. So this one's kind of cool. Or I've got some others of yours, Marty, that you had sent before. We've got this one, I think is yours. And let's see what else we've got. Sorry, I'm just looking at my bridge, which I use for my browsers. Hey, Stephanie. I'm going to go with the neon thing because it's kind of cool. I did one last week of Linton's, and he said he managed to get it to match pretty well or come up with something that was different, but that he was happy with. So I want to do this one just because it's different, right? So I was using keyboard shortcuts there. So I pressed E to get to the edit module. If you press T, you get to presets. So not P, because they used to be called templates. I don't know why they call it presets now, and they keep changing the name, but they're presets, and T takes you to this module. So E takes you to edit. Okay. All right, so obviously we have something that's really dark, and this is a raw file. So I want to see what we can pull out in terms of a little bit of detail. Now, how can we tell that it is underexposed, right? If we look at this is the histogram. So this same graph that's here is also down here. So what tells us that this is underexposed? Does anybody know? So did you go to the location that we suggested, Catherine? Yes, T. Well, it's command or control T in Photoshop for transform. Yes. And you're right. The keyboard shortcuts, but a lot of them are similar. For example, J is clipping warnings both in Lightroom and in Luminar. What else? I'd have to think about it. But if you get my Lightroom sheet, if you use Lightroom, we have a Lightroom cheat sheet as well for keyboard shortcuts, as well as a Photoshop one. You can compare on there and see which ones are similar and which ones are different. I know it would be great if they all got together and said, hey, let's do something consistent, right? So I've got my answers. Sheila says it's all banked on the left. Yes, the histogram. And Marty said the same thing. It's all skewed over to the left. The other thing that tells me that it's underexposed is that there's nothing from the middle here to this right-hand side. So there's only middle gray and darker. There's nothing middle gray and lighter, okay? So there's a few ways to fix this, but I want to show you that exposure is not going to do the solve the problem necessarily, okay? So exposure adjusts midtones, and I proved that in a previous one because we edited something that had a gray background and it affected just the background, okay? The easier way to do it is with curves. And you know what I'm going to ask you to share next, Rob, is our curves tutorial, or my curves tutorial. So because we need to adjust this, we want to get some white in the picture. So I'm going to do two things. I'm going to press the J key first to make sure that I don't have any whites clipping currently. And right now, just this light up here is, which is fine. And then I'm going to drag this in until, see how the data starts to match or meet up with where I'm sliding this? Okay, so I'm dragging this in. See, then I start to see there's some clipping there, okay? So then I'm just going to pull it back a little, like so. Okay, turn off the clipping warnings. Now, it doesn't look like a lot has happened, but look at the difference, okay? So it's starting to make it more glowing. You see the difference between what I did with exposure a minute ago and just pushing the whites here on the curves, okay? So then we can go and boost the exposure a little bit, but that's going to bring up the midtones, okay? See that? We don't necessarily want to do that too much in this image. I'm going to bring up the shadows a bit, so see how that does a better job. Let's keep the exposure down, right? And then I'm going to check that we have blacks. Again, now that I've done some adjustments to the shadows, see there's less blacks clipping. Now I'm going to take it further down to clip again. Okay. I see there's a little bit of highlights clipping. I see in the eyeballs there, in the green eyeballs. I'm not going to worry too much about that. Okay, so see how that J key is really, really cool, really handy. Okay. Now, the other thing we could do is do some color adjustments in here, but heavens knows what color this should be, right? You know, do we want to try one of the presets? We could try daylight. Okay, that's more blue as opposed to purple. But something like this, I mean, you could really decide what color you want to make it, right? My guess is that this fluorescent stuff should be more green and orange, to be honest, not pink. So I kind of want to go almost, you know, this direction, like that. Let's see how that looks. Okay, it's definitely bringing it up. Also, while we're in here, we want to make sure that we have chromatic aberration and defringe checked off. Okay, because if we do have any weird stuff going on, we want to make sure to get rid of that here. Okay, distortion, I can live with that. Doesn't bother me so much. Okay, but color here really is your choice. Okay, like we could go crazy either direction with it, right? So now we got really green. Okay, so let's see. Look at the difference. Okay, I'm hoping that it comes back to, okay, remember these numbers, 10,000 and minus 112. I'm going to try just some of these unusual ones like tungsten. Okay, so when you have something like this that's totally interesting, okay, you can just play around. So I'm just trying different ones. Still not happy as what we had. What did I have? 10,000 minus 12-ish. Kind of like that. See how there's more colors now? Like I see pink, I see orange, I see green, right? As opposed to before, there was mostly just pink and almost kind of a yellow color. So I see more different colors now. Right? Now it looks like there's a guy drawing here. It looks kind of tilted this way, okay? I might get neon puke. This one, I might want neon puke. I might want neon puke, Sheila. Hey, I might want neon puke this time because it is neon. So maybe we just go with it on this one. Okay, now let's see what we can do with cropping because it's tilted, but do we care? I mean, it's kind of like a weird abstract-y thing anyways, right? These lights bug me, to be honest. Like that's what's taking your eye. And if we look at the picture upside down, which is my upside down trick, okay, if we look at the picture upside down, your eyes are going to go directly to these lights and this tree here as well. Okay, so the easiest way to fix this is obviously to just crop the lights out. So I'm going to go free crop and just crop the lights out. And let's just see what happens if we straighten it. Now there's really not much over here. So let's come in on this side as well. Okay. There's still, is there something light there? Right. Any other sort of little spots we can clone out, right? Like there's a tiny spot up here. We can use the erase tool. We can get rid of stuff like that. Right, so these little spots or highlights, like there's a person's head here. I'll probably want to zoom in a little bit. But see how I'm just getting rid of that top and the right-hand side. Yeah, over there. You guys are backwards. When I'm looking at myself, it's backwards. Right, just getting rid of the top and the right, brings us more into this interesting subject matter. Erase is taking a while. Getting very, okay, so Marty says, I'm getting very close to the memory of the colors. The puke was all over the sidewalk, no doubt. Okay, so I just cloned out that little thing there, but what I want to do is, oops. I want to zoom in a little bit here. I'm trying to move there we go. I'm trying to move, not zoom. So I'm just trying to literally clone out the highlights that are taking attention. Okay. And let's zoom out just a little bit. This one over here, there's like a light source here. Okay. So these are the kinds of things that if you clean these things up, are going to help your image. Okay. I talk about this kind of, going the next mile, going the further. There's a zip tie on this tree here, so I don't like that. Let's get rid of it. Look at how good the erase tool is. Like, I'm really impressed with it. I literally removed a photo bomber from a picture that I worked on today. I was at this fashion show on the weekend, and these kids kept playing around in the background. We're trying to do group photos. So I literally cloned out, erased a photo bomber. So that looks pretty cool. Now, we're going to get crazy here, Marty. This color harmony tool, color contrast, let's just see what happens here. So we can take this one up, and what it does is wherever the slider is on the hue scale, it gives contrast to that color and darkens the opposite color. So let's see what happens if we go, see, magenta. I've got this up too high. Magenta, yellow, green, purple. So as we change this, it totally changes the look of, right? Now we can really have it glowing. Didn't actually do as much as I expected it to do. I wouldn't do anything more than that. Maybe add a mystical just to give it a magical glow, because it's kind of already kind of cool, and sort of go with the whole almost abstract sort of thing. Yeah, something like that. Okay, now we can actually copy these settings as well. So if you just have another image that is the same or similar, you don't need to make a preset. So on the beach pictures, if you have several like he had from the portrait session, make a preset, because then you can apply it and tweak them, right? But in this one here, you can just right click, choose adjustments and copy. And then we can go right click on here and paste. Okay. Now let's just see what happens when that gets pasted on here. Boom. Look at that. That's really cool. So it looks like you're at some sort of night festival. Hey, Marty. So this one would definitely be cropped as well. There's lots of foreground stuff going on down here. Okay, so I would get, let's go original. I'm just going to come in, so we don't need the bridge. And then there's some sort of weird light streak over here I'm going to get rid of. Something like that. Right, so just copying and pasting. So when you have images that are similar like this, you can copy and paste, or you can do sync as well. So if you're in the catalog and you select multiple images, okay, I'm not going to want to apply that to any of these, but for example, okay, you can right click and choose sync, okay, and whichever one you are on, so in this case, this one here, it's got a blue outline around it, it will sync the adjustments from that one to the other ones, okay. Now, let me just undo this one here. So let me just select a different image. So I'm going to select that one. We'll just do something weird, okay? So I'm going to sync with those ones, okay? It's going to be weird, but you can undo it easily. So you'll see these change. We'll see the thumbnails change. Yeah, see, it went really, really weird colors, right? Because I did some crazy stuff on those, right? So let's just make these a little bigger. Okay, so now we got wild and wacky colors on these, but we can also just choose to revert, right? So right click, you can revert, and there's keyboard shortcuts for all of these as well. Okay, so copy and paste is Command or Control C and V. Revert to original is Command Shift R, and sync is Command Shift S. Yeah. So if you can't remember them, just use the right click. Gleam show, same show as the moon projection. Ah, okay. Yeah, no doubt. It looks like a really interesting show. Yeah, for sure. Definitely something for photographers. Tomorrow night here we have a full moon coming. It's full moon tomorrow night. And I guess there's also a meteor shower on Friday, Rob, was the first I heard. So something to photograph in this area. Okay. I want to do this cheetah here as well. And maybe actually let's do this one. I'm not even sure whose image this is. Let me look that up. This one I received a while ago. I'm just looking to see whose image it is. Oh, this is yours too, Marty? This is yours too. I've got quite a few of Marty's images. But I want to see what happens if we apply that same preset, because it's going to change the sky, okay? But we can always undo that. So let's just see what happens if we choose it and apply it. Okay, so I did change the sky, but we're going to go back to, we're going to go to edits, and then I'm just going to undo the sky. Okay, so I didn't apply sun rays, so I could probably fix that. And I'm going to change that. So did this actually do much to this image? So it kind of made it a pastel sort of look. Didn't work as well as I thought it might work. These are some that I created. I made another one called Alpenglow, which is the mountain image that I was working on. Let's see what that one does. Because you've got a really cool sky here. Okay, now we've gone the opposite direction. That's a little too much, right? Now, the thing about previous versions of Luminar, you could actually, there was a slider. So if you like the preset, you could dial the whole thing down. And we don't have that anymore. You have to go into edit and literally just dial each one down. Okay. But I'm going to go and look in here and just see what else we have. I have favorited a few. So if there's one that you like, you can just click on it as a favorite. And it's a great idea to sort of, go through these, because get an idea for which ones you like and save them, and then they will be in your favorites. Right. So a couple that I've saved is one called Old Town. I might have even made that one. No, it would have been saved. And Nostalgia Case. So again, another one that's sort of faded out. I tend to like that look. That's my style. Nature. Okay, so we could do nature. See what those look like. Okay, so they're going a little bit too far for me, a little too crunchy, right? Not really happy with what that's doing. And the other thing I want to talk about here is the cropping, because let's see. Okay, overcast. Let's try that. Right now, the cropping, okay, is 50-50 land. So we've got equal amounts of flowers and grass versus sky. Okay, so Marty, or actually everybody else watching as well, what is the subject here? Okay, so that one's got a preset with a sky. Is the subject the flowers? What do you want to see more of? Just say in the chat, flowers or sky. So flowers or sky? Flowers or sky? What do you think is the main subject here? So we've got lots of different looks, that's for sure. I haven't found anything that I'm super crazy about yet, but I want to see what you guys think in terms of what we should focus on. It might make it interesting black and white. That's probably closer to the direction I would go. So I'm going to start with that one. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 flowers. Okay. So that's pretty confirmed. All right, now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, 9 flowers and 1 sky. Charles had to be different, right? Sky is impressive. So what you could actually do with this one, Marty, is you could make this one into a sky replacement. Okay, let me show you how to do this. Okay, there's 2 ways to do this. You could literally copy this image on your hard drive and do 2 edits. Okay, so Luminar doesn't have virtual copies. So if you're working in Lightroom, you can make a virtual copy and then do 2 edits. Okay, but if you're working in Luminar, there's a little bit of a trick here. Let me show you. Okay, if you go into the catalog and show this image in Finder, okay, so now if you're in on Windows, it's going to be Explorer. And I'm just going to copy this image. Oops, not the file name. I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to paste it. Okay, so now you see it says copy. And what happens is Luminar automatically adds it. Okay, now it probably isn't here because I've got it. I need to see all photos. Okay, see, there it is. So I'm just showing favorites. Okay, so if that happens, remember you add a picture and you don't see it, you might have been filtering. So now I've got two different versions here. So let's edit this one for the flowers. Okay, and we're going to crop first, because if the flowers are the subject, we want to see more of them and less sky. Okay, so I'm literally going to go in more panoramic. Okay, something like that. Okay, now we've got flowers, and let's just go all the way back to the beginning and see what this is doing. Okay, so smart contrast, I like that idea. Definitely what that's doing is a good thing. Now the histogram disappears. So when you're in the edit section here and you're not on tools, the histogram disappears, but you can still use the J key. Okay, so if I'm dialing up highlights, I can tell if I've gone too far. Okay, this one doesn't need a lot. I'm just going to tweak it a little bit because I want some blacks clipping, and there isn't any. See that? I want to give it a little more black. Just tuck that in a little bit on this side. Yeah, there we go. Now we got some clipping. See that? So that's J key. Now watch what happens. See what's happening with the contrast, right? So as you increase your contrast, what happens to saturation? Anybody? It goes up, right? All right, so that looks pretty good. And the color looks decent. Do we want to do anything else with color? We could even warm it up a tiny bit, because we're going for the flowers. Remember, we're going for the flowers. Okay, now structure. This is where the clouds sort of went a little wonky. Okay, so what I would do here is structure is good on the flowers, but use the masking tools. And where this masking AI really comes in great is sky. Okay, so we definitely don't want it on the sky. And when this AI analyzes it, once it chooses, okay, yes, it should be the same keyboard shortcut, Charles J. Okay, so it's chosen sky. So all I have to do is select sky, and it should show up. So let's hope. There we go. Okay, so it's selected the sky fairly well. It's not perfect, right? But what's happening is when you do the mask, right, and I choose sky, it's only applying there. So I want to invert it, right? So select sky and then invert, because the adjustments are only applying if I crank them all the way up now on the flowers. Okay, so the more contrast you add to this, the clouds, the more attention they're going to take. So we want more attention in the foreground. Let's leave the clouds softer. Okay. Now, before I leave here, I'm going to go back to the masking that we just did and copy it again. So now we're going to go to enhance, and you see it's doing the sky enhancer again. It's also affecting the sky. I'm just going to paste as well. Okay, so I don't even need the sky to be enhanced. And let's dial this one back a little bit. Maybe change my mind. I'm going to fill this one. So we are going to do the sky, but just dial it in ever so lightly. So see what that does? Again, it brings more attention to the sky. Okay. Now the landscape one. Okay, so this one is adding, dehaze is adding lots of contrast. So I don't really need that. We can add some golden hour for sure. And foliage enhancer, you have to be really careful with this one because it makes, right, our neon yuck. But what I do is I drag it up high and then adjust the hue more yellow, because the green that they pick is always too sort of bluish neon. So we can add some green, but be very careful with this one. I find that it often goes overboard. Right? And I'm not sure we need this one as well. So I'm going to get rid of super contrast. The other one that I am going to try, though, is this color harmony one, right, that we just tried. So I'm going to bring the contrast up. And then let's just play with this slider, because if I go blue, okay, it gives more emphasis on the blue. If I go this way, see how it shifts completely? Oh, I like darkening the green. Look at that. That's kind of a neat effect. See, now the flowers actually stand out more. So I bring this one up higher just to see what it's doing, and then I can adjust the amount. So I like what it's doing on the greens to bring the flowers out more, because I don't want to see so much green in my face, right? And we need to add a vignette. Now, the thing about, for example, if you want to blur the background, okay, there is blur for portraits, right? Portrait bokeh. And people have said, well, there's no blur for images like this, for landscapes. We can't, blur the background. Well, we can. You just have to kind of do it a little bit trickier. Oops. I want to put this off center that way. There we go. Okay, so you can blur the background. You just have to do it with another layer. Okay, so watch what's going to happen here. So I'm going to hit D on my keyboard, and it's going to duplicate the layer. Watch right here. Okay, so new layer, and it's exactly the same as the first layer. Okay, so we can do two things with that. We can change the blend mode. Okay, so if you use darken or multiply, it actually does exactly that. It will darken everything. Okay, so if we wanted to darken the sky, right, we could use multiply blend mode. But if we want to darken it and blur it, okay, let's just leave this all the way up for now. Okay, we're going to mask it again using the portrait or using the mask AI. Merle says, replacing the sky with a soft, slightly cloudy one would emphasize the flowers better. Possibly, but wait, let's just see what we do here. Okay, so now I'm going to select the sky again, and it's not perfect. You see that? It's not selected everything perfectly, right? There's definitely gaps in here, and I'd kind of have to do a lot of masking. I wish there was more an option of, a slider to select more or less, or to refine it a little bit, but there isn't. I'd have to use the brush, right? But I'm just going to use it for now because it's close enough. Okay, so now I've masked it so that this layer here, if I hide the layer, okay, is only applying on the sky. See that? Oops, that's not what I want to do. I want to show it, not duplicate it again. Now we're going to add some blur. Okay, so make sure we're on this layer. Now, what can we use to add blur? Well, there's a few tools. Okay, we can do minus structure. Okay, so we can take it all the way and then boost it all the way. Okay, so see how the clouds are now softer. Okay, we can also do glow. And there's a number of different sort of softening methods here. Orton Effect Soft is kind of nice. And let's just take that one up higher. Okay, and we can increase the softness. Okay, we can change the brightness. We can actually change the color here. We can make it bluer. So see how we're only affecting the sky here. So we haven't changed the sky, right? We're just adjusting it. See what that's doing? Okay. Or let's try soft focus. Okay, so there's several different ones in here. Glow tends to affect the whites more. I like Orton Effect Soft. And then, of course, my favorite, which is Mystical. Okay, so we can add some Mystical. Again, sort of take it up to the max. Okay. And all of this is only applying on the sky because we've masked the entire sky on this layer. Okay, then details. So anything where you can add sharpness and detail, you can also remove it. Okay, so now I can go negative all of these things, okay, except for sharpen. Let me just go all the way. I think it needs to catch up with me. Let's see. My end. That was a short visit. Okay, we're doing Lightroom next week. Send me some more images. Away from keyboard. All right, let's see. 2 a.m. Yes. Thanks for joining, Derek. I'll send you an email. So I'd love for you to try out that preset and see if it works for you on your images to help you with that. Thanks so much, Charles. He's reminding everybody to press the like button on the video. All right, let me see if my computer is caught up now. I think it's doing something. All right, so I'm going to come back up to this layer. Oh, have I got the layer hidden? No. Why will it not let me go to the layer properties? There we go. Okay, so this is the one where I've masked it. Let me just check my masking here because maybe my masking is out to lunch. No, okay. So we've got the sky. Okay, this is the upper layer. So everything that is applying on here should be, let's just hide it. Thought I would be doing more blurring. It's subtle. It's very subtle. But I could actually duplicate any of these things that I've done in here, right? So any of the stuff that I've done to blur, we can just do it again, right? So you can apply these things multiple times. Okay, so I'm going to take amount of structure. I still think it hasn't caught up with me yet. I'm going to come back to this one. Okay, so that's kind of something, that's sort of what I would do with this image, and possibly darken a little bit on the bottom here. And I would make sure to do that on the bottom layer. Okay, so make sure you're on that layer. And there is dodge and burn now. So if you want to use the dodge and burn tool, and this is actually something that I'm going to be adding a video about into the Luminar course very soon. So make sure if you're dodging and burning that your strength is way down low. Okay, like 10 to 15. And then I'm just going to sort of dodge. Sorry, this is burning. Darkening is burning. Okay, if you're confused by the terminology. Okay? So I'm just darkening this bottom section here, like that. Okay, so something like that. Now, to do the sky, I would go back to the duplicate image, okay, that we made. Daniela says darkening the green, reduce the yellow in the grass. Okay, we can come back to that. Too much. Okay, I can come back to that. So now this one, I want to do just the sky. So let's crop it so that we get rid of most of these little guys that are sticking out. Okay, but I'm going to try and keep as much of the sky as possible about there. Okay, so what you're going to be doing is making a sky replacement. Okay, so let's zoom in here, and we're just going to clone these guys out, or erase them out, I guess. Do one at a time. Let it just think, and they should be fairly easy to erase because they're just on the edge. Okay, work through it. Let's see. As Rob said in the chat, yes, now that we're done with the Lightroom course, I'm going to be making some new videos for the Luminar course to catch up. And there are some new things coming for Luminar, which I'm not at liberty to say yet. So just know that they are all good. Okay, so I'm going to do that one. The first one always takes longer for some reason. Let's see how that did a really good job of just erasing that. And if you're using this as a sky replacement, often a lot of the stuff at the bottom is going to be hidden by stuff along the horizon anyways. Okay, So basically you can make your own sky replacement out of this image, Marty. Yeah, I could do a little better job blending there. That's better. Okay, so do all of these guys. Get rid of all of these guys. Okay, probably get the bird too. He's out of focus. Okay, so do all of the erasing. I'm not going to continue and do that. But if you do all the erasing, there's another, looks like a bug or a UFO. I can't decide. Something, right? Some sort of thing. We'll just get rid of that one as well. And then we'll just, spark the sky up a little bit, because what do we know about the image based on this histogram? So when we're looking at just the sky. And one thing that I found for skies, for replacements, you actually want to keep them sort of a little bit softer, right? Let me just go back in here and see if I can, let's just see if I can do a really quick erase here. They may not be perfect, but I just want to get roughly, what it's going to look like for you without the sticks in there, okay? Because this is a really nice cloud formation, right? So when you have images like this, start to build your sky library, okay? And if you notice a sky like this, take one without stuff in the bottom and just capture just the sky, okay? So we could just do some develop here, but I'm actually just going to go straight to Enhance AI and do Sky Enhancer and just see what we get. Like, do we really need to do much more, right? That does a really nice job just by itself, right? So see what it's doing? It's actually just stretching the histogram out a little bit. Look at the histogram. So I could do the same thing by adding some blacks, okay? We could also decide if we want to shift the color and whatnot. And the erase is not perfect here. It's done a weird thing here. So do a better job of the erase, but definitely use this one and make yourself a sky, Marty. Okay, so now let's just see if it's caught up over here. Okay, I'm going to hide this layer. It should be a lot more different. It should show more difference. Okay, so there's the original sky. I don't see a difference. No, I don't see a difference. Interesting. Yeah, it seems to be only applying for some weird reason in that corner. But it's there. It's doing its thing. But you wanted to look at the greens again. We could pick out some yellow as opposed to the green. So I could go into HSL and go to luminance and bring out the yellows. Oops, see, I'm on the wrong layer. Wrong layer. So when you're doing duplicate layers, make sure you're on the right layer, because I was on the sky layer. Okay, so luminance, yellow. See how that affects the yellow, but there's lots of yellow and green as well. I usually like to do stuff like this where I bring one up and one down, because if the yellow and the green are really similar tones, they kind of just make this big mashup of too much busyness. And going back in here, I think I've got too much structure, so I'm actually going to dial this back, okay, a little bit on here, like so. And then as we add each of them, you can just sort of go one by one. Yeah, a little bit too much golden hour. See what each is doing? Each one has a purpose, right? And then I think at the end of the day, I would still, in this version, clone out some of these tall things here. These ones that are sticking out sort of bug me, so I would erase these tall ones and get rid of this one sticking out. Yeah, see, it's way behind. It's not catching up to me. Can you rename the duplicate layers? Unfortunately, not yet. That is definitely something that we've requested as Skyline partners, because for the exact same reason, right? That you just saw. let me clear that. Yeah, you need to know which layer you're on, and if they're the same name, it's really easy. It's sort of, it's highlighted with a blue line around it, but it's very subtle, so it's easy to make that mistake and get the wrong one. Right? Again, I would zoom into 100% and do these more little by little and watch for the blending. So when you're doing a race like this, and this is partly why people want the clone tool back as well, is they want to be able to, use the clone tool to kind of fade it out or get rid of it that way and blend it a little bit nicer. Right. So the erase tool is great and it works amazingly to remove things. Like I said, I literally erased a kid from the background today. Right. But it's hit and miss, and you don't really have any sort of way to adjust it, right? If it misses, you have to either, paint over it again and click restore, which is what I just did, or try it, painting it over it again and erasing again and seeing if you can solve it, right? You like the reduction of yellow. Just realized my comment was confusing. No worries. Okay, so there it's removed the stick. So what you're looking for is that something doesn't repeat, right? So you want to make sure that there's no repeating patterns or things that look weird. Okay, so do you see what I'm seeing here? It's like two of the same cloud. Okay, so I want to make sure that that isn't duplicated. Oh, we got a bug, which is kind of cool, actually. Okay, so I would probably, like I said, do these more little by little like this, sections. Okay. But I would take out just these tall ones, right? Because they just stick up too high, I think. Let's just see how it blends. Get rid of the stick. That's not bad. See what I mean? So I didn't like the first one, so I just clicked it again and then see what it comes up with the second time. And then it got a little better. Okay. So I'm gonna do that one. I just want it to sort of, disappear. And that one did a pretty good job. There we go. Let's see, that's better. Okay, there's our before and after. And Marty, if I was taking this picture, I probably would have avoided this thing here, right? Whatever this thing is with the different kinds of leaves. Just because it's different than the others. So if you're going for, the field of flowers, try to get, see you, Linton, try to get closer to one of them and make that one your focal point, right? So right now the subject is more sort of nature. Okay. Yes, Rob is like the weed master and I have her pull things out. But in this example, I mean, that's a rather large plant. I wouldn't probably pull it out. I would probably just move my feet a little bit more to avoid getting it in the shot, as well as those tall ones, if at all possible. So really, pay attention when you're shooting to what's sticking out in the background. You do that as well. You pull things as well, Catherine. I do not break the branch. We want to preserve the trees. We want to bend them out of the way, but we don't want to break them. All right. Well, I think that is good for today. We've done a lot. I'm going to save this one again, Daniela, because I did your one that you just sent with the horses, because I thought it was really cool. So the bird one, I have some ideas for next time. So again, if you want to see this one in Luminar, that's 2 weeks from now. Next week, we're going to be doing Lightroom. So just as a reminder, let me get back in here, find my thing again. So our Lightroom course, our Luminar course, and our Lightroom course, Rob has popped those in the chat already previously. So if you're interested in taking your Luminar education a step farther, our Luminar Neo course goes through every single module, all the tools, masking, layers, everything. So everything you need to know about Luminar Neo is in our course, and you get my raw files to work with, as well as updates to the course as the program gets updated. So I'll be adding those shortly. As well, just a reminder to please continue to submit your images for our next week and the weeks after. I'm always looking for great images, and you guys are sending me some fantastic ones. So I love working on your images. I did a fun one of Holly's a couple weeks ago with the flower pot, and I really enjoyed the ones that we worked on today. So very different, very diverse types of images from around the world. I love seeing where you're photographing and what's in your backyard and how it's different than everybody else's. So with that, I'm going to bid you all adieu. Ciao, hasta luego, hasta la próxima semana, and we'll see you next time. So take care, everyone.